Tapelo, how are you feeling, brother?
Doing well, doing well. You know me. I'm a humble prayer warrior and an agent of the Lord. I
There
only
is,
exist
there is
to
a
do His.
lie. There is a lie, but moving on. All
Hey,
right.
that is what you believe. However, but let's not contend on belief. So, Lindlani, what's on your heart and mind, my good sir? And if you have a soul, what's in your soul?
Souls do not exist, but without any further delay, let's start today's conversation.
Go for it.
Today, I want to talk about first principles thinking. And somewhere in the conversation, I do want to demonstrate the value of this way of thinking. It's something that I used for a long time before I found a word for it. I only recently just found out, not recently, but like I'd been using it for about 5 years after I found out what it was. And we're going to get into the details of what it is exactly and how it helps me practically in my life. And to kick us off, I'll start with a story about the value of first principles thinking and how I applied it without even knowing what I was doing. So, when I was in
Wait,
high
wait.
school.
Let's
Mhm.
start with the great Indian question. What is first principles thinking?
What
Before
is
we start
first?
going to the tangent of stories, you see. So I will today start with the Indian question. What is first principles thinking? Then you can have your story to demonstrate the value.
Sure. Do you want me to define it or will you?
Go for it, whatever. Like I said, let's try with something on your soul. Because,
Okay.
yeah.
So first principles thinking is this approach to things where you analyze them at their most basic level, right? So
Mhm.
you ask yourself, what is the most fundamental truth about this thing that I'm thinking about or looking at, right? So to be practical, you can look at a car, right? And then say, okay, so here is something that has been given a label of a car. But that is an idea of what this thing that you are regarding is. If
Okay.
you are looking at a car on a first principles basis, you start saying, okay, what is the function of a car, right? Car is transportation. That's the reason why it was invented. But we can
Yes.
go at an even more fundamental level than that, right? So it was invented to travel. Why is travel important? To get human beings from whatever point they are at to another point they need to go to for a purpose, right?
Yes.
And that is first principles thinking, looking at something and then going to its most basic fundamental level.
Yes. No, no, I'm happy with that explanation. Now let's share your first interaction with this thing that saved your life and how it has saved you until you
Yeah.
found the word to define it.
So not first interaction, maybe most first significant interaction. So I was in varsity, and for reasons that I will maybe talk about on a different day, I ended up in a commerce class when all my life I was in the technical subjects that are natural science based, right? So in high school, I did physics, geography, mathematics, and biology, which is now called life sciences, right? So when I was in high school, I had this idea that I would continue in the natural sciences and maybe it would become an engineer, right? But then, things happen, and then I find myself studying risk management and economics. And
Smart man.
I had no prior exposure to economics, accounting, or business studies. So I encountered those disciplines and subjects for the first time in the lecture hall, right? So I was encountered with this problem that, everyone around me had a foundation in what they were studying, and I didn't. I'm sure that there were people that were somewhat like me who found themselves doing a BCom degree despite them doing natural sciences in high school, but I think we're in the minority. And that makes sense why that would be the case because
Yeah.
varsity, there's no hand holding and the basics are often assumed, even in introductory classes. So
Okay.
encountered economics for the first time, and I sort of like had a vague idea of what it was about. But in class, already by lesson number two, they were talking about demand and supply, right? And if you've ever studied demand and supply, you know that like you're gonna have these graphs, that are across like this.
Yeah.
And then like the
Then they do
first
this
one facing
one
this
side.
side is demand, this other one is the supply curve, and where they interact is where you're gonna
Paga.
get
Don't forget.
iparabag. And where they intersect is when you're gonna get the price and demanded quantity for a given good. Right. So that's what was happening. So I'm sitting there in class and I'm dazed and I'm like, oh my God, I've made the biggest mistake of my life. And if I fail this, right, I have to go back to KZN and I don't know what's going to happen to me then, right? Because education is the only way I know how to get where I want to go.
So,
So, what ended up happening is I went to Van Skyke and I bought my first year textbook. And I said
bon.
to myself, you know what? I have a memory where in physics, where there were aspects of it I didn't understand, I didn't actually rely on the teacher to teach me what it was. I would actually sit down in the textbook and try to make sense of it myself, right? And that's what I did with economics. I was like, okay, so I see this whole demand and supply thing that they're teaching me in class, but I need just like to cover my basics, my bases in terms of like what is happening here fundamentally. Went and bought my textbook, and in class they actually started in chapter two. So I went to chapter one, like factors
Yeah.
of production,
Yeah.
labor, land, capital, and the entrepreneurship spirit, right? So
Come on.
building
Out of
so really building the foundation, I'm like, what is this thing about? And then page one actually gives you, that's where the first principles come in. Because when you in chapter two, demand and supply, they already assume that you know what demand is. They already assume that you know what supply is. They already assume that you know what a market is, because demand and supply is what happens when people are buying and selling in a market. But chapter
yeah.
one said to you, what is economics about? Economics is about solving the problem of scarcity, because human wants are unlimited and the resources that we have are limited. We have limited land, we have limited energy, we have limited gold, we have limited water. Everything that we want is limited, but people want to swim in water instead of drinking it, right? So then this thing that I was doing was taking something at its high level, demand and supply and market and prices, and changes in demand based on price changes, to what causes demand and supply in the first place. Demand is people want things. Supply is there are people who can figure out what people want and give them that thing. And to mediate that transfer, we need money and therefore we need markets. That's how then I was able to get a distinction in economics in first year, despite me
Oh,
not ever having seen the subject before.
let me answer this one first. Rebecca Maluk was Mshaleniza. But it's a lot of things, right? Of a of those celebrations in the line. I'm
Mm.
sure no one ever told you they were proud of you, but I am proud of you
Actually,
for
no
reading
one
the
ever
first chapter.
did.
Because
It's a tough life for a thug.
yeah, so you see, that's a first principle for you. I'm proud of you. I think when you talk, maybe I want to. I think one of the things I always try and hesitate with our chats
Mm,
is to start with a predefined answer
mm,
that then someone might misconstrue as the process of what the thing is.
mhm,
And let me try and say it like this: like if you economics for you now is something that you've understood and you now know, like you said at the time, you integrate first principles thinking, and then now that you know the word, you can easily say what it is,
mm,
right?
mm.
It's like why I always tell people the more someone senior gets in certain positions, never listen to their story because now it's polished and all things are clear.
Correct.
But if you're talking to Lindelani and Tapelo saying, hey dude, it's my first day in tech.
Mm,
I saw a scrum board and I was like, what? So maybe a better question, because I know recently I was going through um I was reading up on entropy, right?
mhm,
entropy and hysteresis. I'm not gonna go into that whole madness because it's a rabbit hole on its own. And I don't want us to waste time going down that.
Mm.
But what I always think as your point of first principles thinking is always to say, I think is the core ideology comes from physics of first
Philosophy.
principles. Yeah,
Philosophy
you
and then
see,
physics, because it's very close to the fundamental side of things, it just, naturally
yeah.
progressed to
So look, shout out to physicists for hijacking it before I met philosophers, because
it.
they never know.
Everything is
But
philosophy.
yeah, that's why Einstein. There's a good paper on this though.
Yeah.
The reason why Einstein never won the Nobel Prize for, I think, it was general relativity,
Mm.
was the argument of what is time between him and the philosopher.
Oh,
Beautiful paper.
interesting. Did not that. Did not know that.
Beautiful. It
Yeah.
is. My friend introduced it to me. Tia Mohapi, and that is a religious paper that we live by and abide by.
What is the paper
But
called?
I'll find it for you. But it's a
Cool.
very well-known paper. But I'll find it.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
So, but anyway, I think what I'm trying to figure out is that you're right to say first principles is to start with the question of what is the thing, if we put it properly, right? You're
Mm.
saying, I'm in economics, I'm in tech, I'm in product, I'm in this. Lemogang actually did this on the podcast, on the TMC podcast. He was explaining a product, and he said a product is, look, I'm going to butcher his words, so let me not do it. But he took product understanding and
Mm.
made an album out of it. And he said, an album is a product at the end
Mm.
goal.
Mm.
The back end of what would then enable that product is there's recording, there's marketing, there's
Mm.
finding the name of the song, and
Mm.
and 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 I remember we used to have this thing a lot. It was explain a thing, and I think the
Mm.
whole point of this one is to say there are things that people throw buzzwords around,
Mm.
but if you stop, the famous saying, "Never refuse a moment to think." When someone says to you, "This is technology," it's like
Mm.
I'll take a very good example right now that I personally have a very deep hate of, is when people throw the word AI around
Mm.
and ask them what is AI. Sounds
Yes.
like ChatGPT. Someone will say it's this. I'm like, what?
Great
And then
example.
I'm the idiot for asking what is ChatGPT? What is AI? They say that's ChatGPT. I'm like,
Mm.
what is ChatGPT? It's an LLM.
Mm.
What is an LLM? It's a large language model. So no one's explaining to me what the core of the idea is.
Mm.
And
Mm.
maybe to your point, you say it's always important when people throw words around to try to figure out what is the thing they are saying,
Mm.
what are they trying to solve, perhaps, or what does it solve, and then where does it end up, and how this thing is then solved in this one bracket word.
Mm. Mm.
So, like as your point, like you're saying, economics is demand and supply. What? That's the eventual answer. But you're simply
Yes.
saying people want things, and we don't have enough of things.
And yes, and also so that's the thing, right? That's why I get so frustrated, when educated people speak about things because they're just enamored with buzzwords, they are enamored with complexity to a point where nobody can make sense of anything. Just go on LinkedIn and read the average post. You spend half your time trying to decode what a person is actually saying instead of just saying it. Right? And another way that this thing has been very useful for me is, and I could not have survived school because my memory is terrible, right? Despite how much information I've managed to cram in my head, my memory actually is terrible. And the only reason why I've been able to cram this much information in my head is because of first principles thinking, right? If I ask you for a definition of something, there are two ways you can go about it. You can try to reproduce and recollect a definition that you read on a textbook or read
Can never.
from a dictionary, or you can take your understanding of the thing and just describe it to me. And remember when I said to you, I'm going to demonstrate the value of first principles thinking using an exercise? This is what I want to
Yeah.
do, right? So
Wait,
I'm going to give you. Mhm.
no, good. I just want to simply say the word you're looking for about smart people and words, it's called intellectual masturbation. That's the word.
Yeah, perfect phrase.
I'm done. I
I'm
am
dead.
done beyond that. I will not expand further. Go ahead with your exercise.
So the exercise is actually very similar to explain a thing, right? So when we met at Tumuzi, we had this exercise that we did to teach ourselves to be more articulate and also to understand things at a deeper level, right? So we'd come together in a room and we'd be sitting in a group and a person would be nominated and they'd be given a word at random, right? So somebody would say, explain chemistry or a chemical to me. And then on the spot, you had to describe what that thing is. So there's a bunch of reasons why that works, right? And why it's helpful. Number one, most people actually aren't used to standing up in a group of people and having the
Yeah,
confidence to say anything, right?
yeah,
And
yeah. But
secondly,
also like,
mhm.
and also like to your point, like there are a lot of things that you know, but you can't actually explain. I think one of the words I was given was name.
Yes. Yes, name. And also, when things are
Yeah,
described to us, right, they're described to us at a higher level and not at a basic level. So, what we do is we play an association game where if somebody says chair, I just try to remember the words that were given to me about what a chair is and also associate it to a memory of an object that is shaped like a chair. But I don't get the chairness of the thing, right?
yeah. Thank you.
So confidence to speak and also testing the depth of understanding. That's why we had explained the thing. So now I
Yeah.
want to demonstrate the value of this in real life, right? Tapelo,
Hmm.
can you explain to me what science is? Define
Ah,
science.
this one. There was a very smart man. I'm gonna butcher this one. Jacob Zuma once went on TV and said, "Science is the knowledge obtained
Uh-huh.
and tested and brought under one principle under observation." What is it?
Sure.
There's a video. I gotta find that video. I sent it to you like 100 times. But
Send
now,
me the link.
like,
I'll put it up.
yeah, that's the best video ever. But science, what science is the notion of bringing ideas and then testing them under a standard principle so we can prove whether or not they are true or false. That is the Hippocratic oath of science.
Mm,
You are coming with the idea. Are you lying or are you telling the truth?
mm,
Because what science believes, the core belief of science, is over time we understand things better and we must discard bad explanations. Simple example is law of use and disuse
mhm.
and natural selection.
Yes.
I will leave
Law
it
of
at that.
user disuse is Lamarck's theory of how organisms evolve, and the natural selection is the one that won Darwin. So I'm doing this to show that like I'm learning Gen Z speak. And secondly, I did wanted to like actually, pause here before we move on and say the definition of science that you've given is correct, right? Anyone who understands science says this guy actually understands what the thing is, but it's not a definition of science you're going to find in any dictionary or textbook. And that's
Yes.
exactly what we mean, right? If you understand a thing, I can just wake you up at 1 a.m. and ask you about it. You can reduce it to its basic elements and then describe it to somebody else. But if you ask somebody who's crammed the definition of science, they're going to say science is a method of discovery whereby scientists use instruments to test theories in the lab and blah, blah, blah. And they can reproduce that. But is the understanding behind the thing that they're saying, or is it just, restating words like a parrot, right?
Yeah, look, I'll answer this one in a far dumber manner than it is. I will not you I myself I have what someone defined clearly as something like information anxiety. When
Mm-hmm.
I come across something I don't understand, I do the 95-hour, 100-hour work week of going down the rabbit hole
Mm.
because I want that next time when I meet that person, I'm like, no, I'm ready now. Let's have this conversation.
Yes.
So I don't think of ourselves as a very good benchmark
Mm.
because if we can put up our chats online, there's a lot of madness in there that doesn't make sense for
Mm.
someone who has no interest
Yes.
in things that are not related to them for various reasons. Like people are busy and what so I don't know.
Mm.
So
Mm.
I get your point to say maybe the question there's a thing actually in this whole notion of first principle thinking that maybe is not said. There are good questions to bad answers. There
Mm-hmm.
are bad answers to good questions.
Say
Ours is
more
to
about
figure
that.
out how
Mm.
to build the matrix to ensure that good questions go with good answers
Mm.
as
Mm.
opposed to the mismatch.
Yes.
Because what happens most of the time in my experience of first principles thinking is people will answer under a very, like I was just saying, I will say, why should you use AI?
Hmm.
The answer's already there. Oh, it makes me fast and what. That's a very bad question with a good answer in a way.
Mm,
I
mm.
hesitate to call it, but you get my point. Like, I'm gonna make this one very clear.
Yes, yes.
And because everyone is saying, like you said, LinkedIn, I hate that side with a deep, dark, burning hate of passion. And I can write an essay, like a dissertation on that thing.
Same, brother.
Right?
Say it with the passion of a thousand burning suns.
Exactly. But you see my point that they're now saying, why are you not using AI?
Mm,
Why is AI not making you productive?
mm,
They're not saying, no one's sitting down and saying, this AI thing, what is it? What value can it add to the system?
mm,
What intricacies in how the way we work and create value? What is value defined as in the world of AI? When all assumptions are there, the
mm,
knowledge is there. How do we prod it to do better? Right? And a simple example of this, and I said to someone, we have the millennial questions, those 7 math questions that have never been solved.
mm,
How do I take the best math student and enhance their thinking on this journey of their cryptography, understanding, and topology
mm,
to crack the millennium question so that we
mm.
can break this and this thing can happen? No
Ha-
one's asking the
Sorry,
questions
having
like
two
that.
been solved?
One,
One.
one,
Ah.
one, and the guy refused the prize money.
Gregory Perlman.
Oh, geez, that guy. That's a guy we should have on this podcast because I don't know anyone who's hit the pinnacle of a subject and
Mm.
walked away from it. Like, yeah, I finally found the level. Your booze mean nothing to me. I've seen what makes you cheer. That's what the
Uh,
man said.
he-
That
uh,
Rick said.
your hero, Rick, Rick Sanchez.
Yes, like, that's my point, right? Everyone comes with either bad questions
Mm,
or bad answers, or good
mm,
questions or bad answers.
mm,
But we have not found a way. So when
mm,
people who use sensible principles thinking, there are cases where it's an abuse or what's the word I try to say? An obfuscation of
mm,
things. Where someone says, no, let's break this down to first principles.
mm,
Some things that should not even, we should not be saying, what is demand and supply? Google that. We're moving.
mm, mm, mm.
But then, so no, let's break this down to first principles thinking. You're like, here we go, 30 minutes. We're going to do
So
first principles.
you are right there. Like context matters, and I used to be somebody who undervalues context, right? So you need to balance out this first principles thinking with efficiency, right? So if you are sitting in a room of like Nobel Prize laureates, you don't need to explain what matter is, right? You can just take for granted that everybody in a room understands what matter is and speak at the level of quantum physics and speak of at the level of like the probabilistic theories of quantum physics. That's okay, right?
We
But
also should never say that because there's a paper that came out that after 100 years, there's no global definition of quantum physics and quantum mechanics. But go on.
yeah. And then wait, actually before I go on, I want to go back to your point, right? You were talking about bad questions, good answers, and the opposite, vice versa.
Yes.
And this is another utility of first principles thinking, calibrating your bullshit detector, right? So we live in a world where there are so many scams. Like there is a thing that just happened now with the Russian training program that was advertised, and there's been blowback. I don't comment on those things, but I just use it because it's in the imagination right now, and it's a hot topic that everybody's talking about. Right. So
Yes,
if
sir.
something like that happens, right, when I heard of that program, before reading any details, I could have told you that it's something you should have stayed away from, right? Before doing research. So people are saying the influencers should have done their research. But if you have a well-calibrated bullshit detector, you know, first of all, too good to be true should be something that is inscribed on all our foreheads, right? You can't
Yes.
get something for nothing. It's just a law of nature. We know that like everything that is worth having requires effort. That's why we value hard work. Human beings value hard work because it comes from an understanding that to produce something of value, you need to do something incredible, right? And if you don't want to
Yes.
work hard, you better come up with a good insight about how to optimize the process. So it's either hard work or genius. There's nothing else you can put in there to get something.
Hey, let me make this better, because that thing of hard work is valued in humanity. Capitalism says no. Now, I'll give you, when I was smarter a few years ago,
Mm,
I did a simple answer for myself and trying to figure out these things, right? I
mm,
said it's utility, it's experience, it's image, right?
mhm.
That's it. So it's like a, how do you interact with things? And then there's also, and I said, now on this spectrum, it's like this way, right? The service level is your y-axis, like, so how high is the service levels on your y-axis? Then your x-axis is the number of customers, right? So from
Okay,
zero
so
to
quality
7
of
million,
service, customers,
yeah, like this.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. Hmm.
Now I said, so I'm gonna do this thing. So you need to see both graphs in your head. I'm sorry, I can't. We should
Mm,
find a way to do graphs anyway. A utility thing, a thing that does a thing. Utility is a thing that does a thing.
mm,
Always has a low service level, but a very high number of customers. Think of McDonald's, ShopRite, and whatever.
mm, mm,
You go there because you know what it does.
mm,
And there's like 1 billion people there.
mm,
So you're not expecting to go to that, then find nothing. The second one I said was experience, right?
mhm,
This is where now you literally lose about maybe 75% or whatever. So this is like now being seen as something like Louis Vuitton,
mm,
Daytona, and whatever, right? Customers drop immensely, service level increases hundredfold.
mm,
Yeah. The last one, which was the S one, was the image.
mm,
And this is a very good one I can give to you. And South Africa is a very, now this thing of the influencer thing you're raising, I'll give you two examples. In a country where there's high unemployment, being seen to be a job creator or a plugger of jobs gives you a great image,
mm,
right? So them saying, we are taking you guys out of South Africa where there's large youth unemployment
mm,
and putting you on a global perspective looks good for their brand.
mm,
Or I can simply say, going to work tomorrow with my blood donator t-shirt says
mm,
to people, I care about people that I know have relations to. So for me, whenever I interact with things, it's always in that three step. What's
mm,
the image? Oh, cool, cool, blah, 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 blah. Because once you do that, you know where to look for other things.
mm,
There's a 7 people here, not worth the headache. There's a lot of things here. There's only 4 people who can afford this.
mm.
There's this and this. There has to be these other three things. I save my time because I don't want to be stuck with
Yeah.
something I don't care about.
I need to interject
That's it.
here. And now
Go
we
for it.
started with the layer of first principles thinking, right? We were
Let's
saying
go back to
whenever you're
it.
approaching something, start with the basic elements and then build up from there. And now
Yes.
we have progressed to the build up stage, right? And this is where now I think we need to spend a bit of time. Cause you started with, okay, so when we are regarding the world, looking at the world, I have created these three categories of interpreting um, what is happening, right? So there is the function utility of something, there is the premium that is added to something as the quality goes up, and then there is this just hollow virtue signaling where we can play status games where I know that a thing is going to give me status, right? So now we are
Yes.
moving from here is what things actually are, right? So things in the world function a certain way. That's first principles thinking. And now you are putting models on top of it,
Yes.
saying here is a framework to think about these things, right? It's either something is useful and it's like it's bare, it's a table, it's simple, I'm gonna sit on it and write. Or it's a very fancy Louis Vuitton table that has lights and things, but you are paying there for utility and also you're paying for convenience plus the quality. And then there are people who
Yes.
pretend that they've built a Louis Vuitton table when actually they're just like pretending. They're just, wrapping something very cheap in something that looks prestigious. And that's the status image thing that you mentioned. So
Yes.
so if we move on from there, so we have the first principles, we have the models we build because we don't have the time for efficiency to be looking at things at their basic elements, we create heuristics and we create these models.
Yes.
And on top of models, we then have disciplines. Like, okay, so now you have demand and supply, you have in economics. Now you have these complicated things that sit on top of it. And that's how the world is structured. And a lot of people are, we are arguing, operating at this higher level. And
Yeah,
understanding things at a higher level is hard. If I try to explain to anyone who hasn't done, let's say, who hasn't studied finance, what financial instruments are, that's going to be difficult. But if I say to them, so financial instruments are at this high level, but we can bring it back to this low level and say, look, you need a way to protect your money, right? And then you can put your money under a mattress, but people could steal it there. You can put it in a bank, or you can put your money, and if you put it in a mattress or you put it in a bank, it doesn't earn interest, it just sits there. If you put it in a
yeah,
savings thing, a bank is gonna reward you for putting it in a savings thing because they can take your money and give it to somebody else who's gonna, start a business and profit and then bring the money back to the bank and then you earn for giving that and putting the money there. And there's another layer there. Now, these things that we lock our money in, we can trade those things. That's what financial instruments are. So I did want to form that entire picture of how you move from first principles to this highest level where people think, and that's where we get lost.
yeah. Maybe first of all, like the banking understanding is horrendous in the land, banks and whatever. So I'm not gonna start that one. It's a rabbit hole I've decided my entire life to never go down again. But simply, I'm going to put this thing and simply say banks do not lend out people's deposits. That's a misconstruction of fractional reserve banking. Full stop. I will
Okay,
not enter that one because
that's we can talk about that, but this was like massive
yeah, I get you.
simplification.
Yeah,
Banks
but
actually
let's not do
create money by
propaganda
typing
as
on a
well.
spreadsheet, but it's a discussion
Let's
for
not
another
do the influencer's job as well and be liars here. I
day.
agree with you. I think maybe you put a very important word there. Heuristics also help us deal with this large contagion of things, right?
Mm, mm,
And I think maybe the bigger problem, as you say, like with social media, all these things, we're just exposed to more and more.
mm,
I think I was telling you when I was saying, I still don't see, not in a good or bad way, I don't see where AI helps me when I don't understand the fundamentals.
mm,
Because then I have
mm,
the dopamine rush of understanding and I think I can do this.
mm,
And maybe, as you've said right now, there is a danger of the growth of charlatans in the industry as a thing because we've we're training people to say stories better.
mm,
We're training people to be perfectly polished.
mm,
There's a thing I was having with a friend of mine. As I was saying to him, looking even myself, I was looking like certain junior job descriptions. They're no longer junior job descriptions. It's no longer a guy saying, "Dudes, walk. Let's share your thoughts, speak, and then we'll train you on this thing." It's always a case of we're looking for a junior with 2 years experience, and you're like,
mm,
so I don't know what the answer is for this one, right? And it's gonna get worse.
mm,
Like I don't know what the answer is. For me personally, I think the answer is definitely finding what are better sources of your interaction with certain information. Like
mm.
I have my influencer feed literally at the top of my
Yes.
whatever, like my Twitter feed and whatever. And all that gives me is a tempo on what's happening.
Mm, mm,
But then my entire feed is constructed of other things. Like I always say to people, when something happens, I say, cool, this is like Lindelani and Tapela fighting. Once everyone starts reporting on it, I stop following it. I'll
mm,
find it on all of my feeds. I no longer need to follow it. But then in that conversation, so it's like an issue of geopolitics. There'll be something that usually drops somewhere there,
mm, mm,
right? Then that's the thing I'll start following. So, oh, this is the thing that they are fighting about, the geopolitical structure of the USA. Oh, okay, cool. Oh no, there's actually in the geopolitics, there's a debt market. Okay, cool. This is a debt market. Oh no, actually, there's a contagion risk. How bad it is. Then I realized all these five things at the top, I need not follow anymore. Like
exactly.
I
You
always
can
say,
just follow at this fundamental level.
yeah, and like if you're reading a paper that's like 300 pages long, be happy to drop it after 2 sentences with, yeah, no, it does. Because I think there's this thing where because something's a good source, you feel that you need to read it to the end. If it doesn't
Mm,
flow for you, let it be. Forgetting is the best thing you can ever do in your life. Like,
mm,
if I don't understand it, it's fine, forget it. and move on.
Or go
Maybe
to
it's a
first
great.
principles thinking and understand it at a fundamental level and then build up from there. Now,
Ha!
I will then wrap up in a minute and I'll give you an opportunity to
Lend the plane.
I'll give you an opportunity to do the same, right? So the thing that I was trying to do here is really introduce a concept that I think anyone who has done well in life actually uses, right? Like
Yeah.
again, this is not an Elon Musk talking podcast, but Elon Musk did it in a great way when he was revolutionizing
Jesus,
SpaceX.
Jesus.
So
Oh God.
rockets are super expensive. Ask the question, why are rockets expensive? Like they're not made of like some rare metal that we mine on the moon that costs like hundreds of thousands of dollars to mine. Everything that they're made up of is made up on Earth. So he started like literally writing a list of all the components of a rocket to identify where things are going wrong. And then he found
Yeah.
that like there are all these, it's not the materials themselves for the most part that are expensive. It's like how they where they are got and all the other things around the components and thought about optimizing. So very useful tool to use. I hope that we've given people enough background, context, and examples to be able to apply it in their lives. Because for me, I would not be able to do anything without this way of thinking.
Wow. So you'll not be able to do anything without Elon Musk in your life. I'm really disappointed in you. Firstly, how many minutes you got? How many minutes? What's the last? What's the last? How many? How much you got?
You can take a minute to take it home.
How long? Now how many minutes do you got? Because I
We have
really
two
don't really.
minutes.
Okay, cool. There's a saying, right? So I really figured this out. But anyway, the saying that I have is long entropy and hysteresis, right?
Long
Gonna
entropy
butcher this
and
hysteresis.
okay.
Sharp. But anyway, what it says is technically like with entropy, you're looking at a system that's slowly decaying with uncertainty built into it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm really glossing over a lot, but that's it.
Mm.
When hysteresis, it's a system where the effect lags behind the cause.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I do these two things is to say to people, whenever you're interacting with anything, always think of that. Where's the disorder and uncertainty?
Mm.
Where's the cause lagging effect?
Mm.
That's it for me.
What is a
Because if
cause
you can,
lagging factor? I think it's worth defining a bit.
good. Finally, I'll give you an example. We have COVID that loaded a recession.
Mm-hmm.
It never happened, but it's still coming. Everyone knows it's coming. They just don't know when.
Mm.
That's a simple answer. That's what I'm saying. There are certain things that happen.
Yeah,
Everyone knows the effect will land somewhere.
but we don't know
But
when.
because systems are very, I don't want to say, systems are really fragile, they're very stubborn.
Yes.
It might take time for the effect to land.
It's something like this, right? So for a lot of people who smoke, the disease will come, right? So the immediate effect of something is I slap you, you feel the pain on your cheek right now, right?
No, no, you got it. You got to wait. Here's a system where disorder happens. I start smoking in high school, I get addicted.
Mm,
The effect in the system is that now that I'm addicted, I'm building lung cancer. But I will
mm,
only have lung cancer at 60.
perfect.
Long entropy and hysteresis.
Then you've landed the plane. Thank you for the conversation.
Love you chatting to you, man.
Think about a topic for our next one, and also we invite the audience to do the same and leave it in the comments. I appreciate it, brother.
Love
Catch you
you.
next time.
Love you, bro. I
Love
love
you
you.
too, bro. Cheers.
Thumbs up.